Hello, everyone. This is Julia Barbaro, host of the Julia and Gino Podcast. I'm here with the co-founder of Jake and Gino, my husband and co-host, Gino Barbaro.
Julia,
Yes.
this is going to be another amazing podcast. This guest says that I asked him, how do you keep writing books? And he keeps telling me at this time, do you think I would have forgotten or I would have not been able to come up with more content? And it seems as you get on in life and you really found purpose in life, you just continue to create amazing content. And for us, it's just an honor to have Dr. Gary Chapman back on the podcast. He's best known for helping improve and heal our most important relationships. And in his new book, The 5 Traits of a Healthy Family, he provides you with the action steps to grow closer, communicate better, and design a pathway for creating a healthy family. Welcome to the show, Dr. Chapman.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back with you all.
This is amazing. Obviously, family, when we heard we're having you back on, I'm like, yes. Like, I love just speaking about marriage and family and children, obviously, is what I live for, and I'm excited for this book. And I want you to just give the listeners an idea what it's about.
Well, what motivated me is I've had so many people in my office over the last several years who said to me, Gary, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and I really have no idea of what a healthy family should even look like. And so I thought, let's just put together 5 concepts that are part of a healthy family, and then give people practical ideas on how to build these into their own family. Because I think most of us agree that if we have healthy families, it impacts all of culture. If we have unhealthy families, that impacts negatively all of culture. So I'm just trying to help people wherever they are get a clear picture of what a healthy family looks like and how to have a healthy family.
As I'm looking at these 5 traits, the first one is families who develop an attitude of service. I think that can even incorporate into I'm going to try to keep it family, but I like to bring in the business world because I'm a business person. I'm an entrepreneur. But if you look at it from the entrepreneurial perspective, we should all be in that service mode. And it's ironic, I guess, that you're saying that families need to develop that. Why do you list that as one of the tops?
I believe that this is fundamental to everything else. The people who have the greatest impact on the world are those who have an attitude of service. And I think, I was walking across the university campus of University of Virginia some time ago, and I was going to be speaking in Cabell Auditorium. But on a side door that goes into that building, etched in stone above the door are these words: "You are here to enrich the world, and you impoverish yourself if you forget the errand." And I thought, man, what if every university in the country had that as a theme? Because I think it's true. So in a healthy family, the husband will have an attitude of serving his wife and serving his children. She will have an attitude of serving him and serving the children. They will then teach the children how to serve each other, and as they get older, how to serve mom and dad. And then we take that outside the family so that our kids grow up with a sense of our family is about serving other people. So that's why I put it number 1, because if we don't have an attitude of service, we're not likely to have a good marriage or a good family. And let's face it, by nature, all of us are self-centered. And there's a good part to that. It means we feed ourselves, we get sleep, we get exercise, good part to that. But when it becomes an attitude of selfishness, and this is the way of life, I'm in whatever I'm doing, I'm in it for what I can get out of it. So if I'm married, I'm here for you to make me happy. If you don't make me happy, I'm out of here. And that's where many, many people are in our country. An attitude of service, as you mentioned in business, those who have the attitude, I want to do everything I can to enrich the lives of my customers, people that I'm helping, rather than I'm in this business for what I can get out of it. I want to make money. I don't care about the people. I want to make money. They'll never have a good business. The people that work for them will not be happy going to work.
Dr. Chapman, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Recently, me and my wife went on a couples retreat, And one of the speakers said, happy wife, happy life. It's not the way things should be. You should have some type of self-love for yourself. I don't want to confuse it with what you just said. It's just all about me, all about me. But shouldn't, and part of a happy relationship and a happy marriage, shouldn't we have self-love for ourselves and then not just be relying upon making my wife happy, but she should also have that self-love. Can you comment on that and expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Jesus himself said this: love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't love yourself, your neighbor's not going to get much.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a healthy love.
Mm-hmm.
It means that we value ourselves, we see ourselves as being valuable and having the capacity to make a positive impact on the world. And so, yes, we should have that healthy self-love, but it should not be selfishness in terms of I'm only concerned about what I'm getting. So if you have a healthy self-love, then you're going to love the other person the way you love yourself. You're going to be looking out for their interests, just like you look out for your own interests.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think those two are parallel.
And I think too, as parents, it's easy. It's easy. I shouldn't say it's easy, but it's easier for a mother to show service to the children and even the husband. The harder part is to teach the kids to serve each other as siblings. And I think sometimes we forget about that. I've seen it in families, even in our family, we forget it to teach the children, and not forced, not just tell me, tell Michael, go help your sister. When I first watched my children service each other without my guidance or without my ask, oh my gosh, wow, that was incredible. And what I did was I pointed it out later, and they realized what they did, and then they did it more. And I think we have to be careful as parents not to demand it on the kids, but to teach them with love. So I love when you even give practical advice. You don't give advice that we can't follow. So I really appreciate your wording in your books. Can you give some practical advice on how to teach our children to be in service to each other?
Yeah, I think if we could observe our children doing kind things to each other, and as they get older, doing kind things to people at school and otherwise, to say, I noticed how when Mary dropped her pencil, you picked it up and gave it back to her. And I like that. We need to be like that. We need to do things to help other people. And I noticed how you, with your sister, how you did this, or your brother, how you did this. And it makes me so happy when I see you serving other people, because that's what life is all about. Yeah. And you just pick up on what's already there, but you affirm it. I give them verbal affirmation of those things. And you also talk about, this is the way Dad serves the family. And you talk about some of the things Dad does. This is the way Mom serves the family. And you talk about that. And so as you grow up, you get the opportunity to serve. And and the kids get into it. I remember when my kids were, 10, 11, 12, in the fall, when the leaves have fallen, I put rakes in the back of the car, took my two kids in the car. We drove through the neighborhood looking for yards that had not been raked. And I would knock on the door and I'd say, "Hi, I'm Gary Chapman. I live down the street here." I said, "I'm trying to teach my children how to serve other people. And if you don't mind, we'd like to rake your leaves for you." And they would say what? and I'd repeat my little speech. And they said, "Oh, I'll pay you to rake my leaves. I've been looking for someone to rake my leaves." I said, "No, I don't want money. I'm just trying to teach my children how to serve other people. And we would just love to rake your leaves." I never had anyone that wouldn't let us rake the leaves. And the kids loved it. The part they really loved was after you get them in a pile, jump in the pile.
Yes, of course. Little reward at the end. I love that.
The second one, I love it because it's husbands and wives who build intimate relationships. How can a husband or wife start to build that intimate relationship? And it's important that I think the children see the husband and wife have that intimate relationship.
Yeah, I think when some people hear the word intimacy, they think of only the sexual part of marriage. It's far broader than that. It means we have intellectual intimacy. That is, we're sharing ideas, thoughts, dreams, concepts with each other, intellectually think. And some people have lost this because they'll share an idea and their spouse will say, "Well, that won't work," or, "That's not right." And they get into an argument. No, listen to each other. We can learn from each other what we're thinking and feeling and what our ideas are about life. So intellectual intimacy, emotional intimacy. Yeah, we share our feelings with each other, positive and negative. And we try to meet each other's emotional needs. One of the greatest needs is the need to feel loved. And that's where the love language is so helpful in helping you meet each other's need for love. So we build intimacy, emotional intimacy, and then we build social intimacy. That is, we do things together with other people. It may be going to church. There's a social aspect to that. It may be going to a ball game, but we're doing things with other people, interfacing with other. And sometimes you're going to things that you don't particularly have an interest in. Like maybe you don't like the symphony, and your spouse loves the symphony, but you go with them and you greet people before and afters, and pretty soon you learn what an oboe is. or one wife said to me, he's into car racing. I don't get it. Cars just going round and round and round and round. And she said, but I go with him because I know he likes it, and he has friends there, and we interface with his friends and all. And she said, I do it. I don't particularly like it, but I do it because I want to spend time with him in a social setting. So there's social intimacy, there's spiritual intimacy. And I don't mean that we preach to each other. I don't mean that we say, I read this this morning, and I want to tell you, you need to hear this. You need to do this. No, not preaching to each other. I'm talking about if you read something in a devotional or a scripture or whatever, you just say, I read this morning. It was so meaningful to me. I just want to share it with you. So wherever we are in the journey in that area of life, and then yes, there is physical intimacy in a healthy marriage, but physical intimacy is impacted by all these other areas. And if we don't have intimacy in these other areas, we likely will not have intimacy in the sexual area. So in a healthy family, the husband and wife will have an intimate relationship. And if they do, they're setting for their children an example of how a healthy marriage, what it looks like. And many children grew up in homes where they didn't see that. They didn't see their parents sharing life together. They saw their parents arguing with each other, saying other hard things to each other. They never saw that. So they don't know what it looks like. So in the book, I'm trying to describe what that looks like, and then steps you can take to build that into a marriage relationship.
So the next one I'm sure Gino wants to talk about is the parents who guide their children. And we were kind of touching on this throughout the whole show so far. I don't think we realize the impact we have on our kids just living our lives during the day. I was actually talking about that today with someone that I coach, is the kids are literally watching everything we learn, everything we do. They're just learning all the time. We could teach them whatever we want. We could tell them to be respectful to each other and service each other, but they're going to learn by our actions. And so talk a little bit, Dr. Chapman, about parents and guiding the kids.
Well, I do think our model is extremely important because it's going to have a greater impact than our words, actually. But when it comes to teaching and training children, which is really what I mean when I say guidance, teaching and training, and I use those two words because they're different. Teaching has an emphasis on words, talking to the child, explaining things to the child. Actions, if they're tied together, you're far more likely to get the child's attention. And let me just illustrate. Here's a mother who's fixing dinner, and little Johnny's playing out in the yard next door. So she goes to the door and says, "Johnny, dinner." And little Johnny just keeps on playing. And she goes back 2 or 3 minutes later and says the same thing. And then said it a third time. The fourth time, she says, "Johnny, get home." And Johnny comes home. Why did Johnny come home on number 4 and not on number 1? Because he has learned that if he doesn't come home when mother says, "Get home," she'll come down there and take him by the hand and lead him home. And he does not want mother in the neighborhood, so he comes home. So I say to mothers, or fathers, if you want your child to come home on the 4th call, that's fine with me. But if you'd rather they come home on the 1st call, you take the action that you normally did on number 4 and do it on number 1. But tell him you're going to change. I'm going to call you one time. If you don't come, I'm going to come down there and walk you home. You will not walk him home but one time, and he'll come home on that 1st call. It's actions and words together. I remember when my son was a teenager, I would go on some Saturday nights down to the juvenile detention center. And when he got to be a teenager, I took him with me. And we'd go down there and play ping pong, and then we'd talk to some of the guys. And they'd tell us their story and why they were there. And then we would ride home. And I'd say, "Derek, isn't that sad, man? He's your age. and he broke the law. And so look where he is. It's actually, I could have given him a lecture about not breaking the law and all that,
Mm,
but,
yeah.
taking him down there, exposing him to that, words and actions together are far more effective in helping children get whatever it is we're trying to teach them.
Mhm.
Gosh,
You-
why didn't I learn this years ago? You're telling me this, and I'm like, what?
it's okay.
And funny enough, I remember, the whole thing, 5 more minutes, and then 10 minutes later, 5 more minutes, and I watched parents do that. I did the same
We
thing.
did it last
The
night.
funny part is, I would say, kids, 5 minutes, they would be in the room, and I was still talking to the mom for another 2 hours. Like, they learned that from me.
Mhm.
But the interesting part is, I noticed it as I became more aware of other moms. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. Why? I actually don't like that. And so I would say, kids, it's time to leave. And I would go get them and they would leave. And I'm like, wow, why did that work? It's exactly what you're saying. But I had to figure that out, Dr. Chapman. I didn't read the book. Why? Why weren't you around years ago? So
Well,
thank
some
you for
things we
teaching
learn,
us.
yeah, some things we learn
Yeah.
just by experience.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
That story is a beautiful story you
Yeah.
just said, and it leads me to my next question about leadership. You, as a
Mhm.
dad, were a leader.
Mhm.
You actually brought your son into the environment instead of
Yes.
telling him, and you
Mhm.
led him. Husbands as leaders nowadays, we may get a negative stigma in society saying, "Oh, you're going to leave the wife and the kids." Can you distinguish that and let us know, I guess the positive aspects of it, why it's so important
Mhm.
for the husband to be the leader?
Yeah, I think sometimes men misinterpret and misapply the concept of a
Mhm.
husband being the leader. I like to put in the words, be a loving leader. Because if he has the idea that what that means is that he's the president and she's the vice president, he always has the final
Mhm.
word. He's missed it. Or if he says it means that I'm the general and I tell her what to do. No, 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 no. It means he's a loving leader, which means
Yeah.
he takes initiative to do loving things for his wife and for his
Mhm.
children and for the community for that matter. Kind of goes back to that service concept. Love and service kind of go together. And I don't think many women are going to walk away or be disapproved of a husband who is a
Mhm.
loving leader. Now, yeah, if a husband has the idea, I'm the president, you're the vice president, da 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 da. Yeah, she's going to resent that because we are equal partners. But listen, we're on the same team. We're not competitors. We're on the same team. And yeah, we're going to do different things. She's good at some things. He's good at some things. And neither one of them are good at some things that have to be done. But, you know, and we decide what could I do that would be meaningful to you, that would help you? What would make your life easier? You know, and then we initiate those kind of things. And so, and also initiate doing things with the children. So yeah, I think a husband in a healthy family, the husband has that kind of leadership. He is a loving leader, but don't ever separate the two words, or you'll miss the point. You'll miss
Mm.
the point.
Yeah, I love that, Dr. Chapman. I think even everything that we were just talking about, it kind of comes back to something it reminded me of is that a lot of couples and a lot of siblings in the house are competitive and they want to be the one on top. They want to be the one noticed or the one that wins whatever game they're playing, whatever it is. And I'm talking unhealthy competition. I'm not talking healthy
Yeah.
competition because there is fun in that. And maybe the husband wants to be the favorite parent or the one that the kids listen to the most or whatever it is. It's usually with a unhealthy reason, and even siblings get jealous of each other and try to compete with them. Really what they're craving, I'm assuming, is to be loved. And maybe if they're loved from the beginning, maybe they would avoid that part of it. Can you speak to that for a little bit? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that one of the child's deepest emotional needs is the need to feel loved by the significant people in their lives, and none are more significant than mom and dad. Now, let's face it, there are thousands of children who grew up in homes where there is no dad. It's a single mom,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a grandmother, maybe a grandfather, but significant people in their lives. If they feel loved by those people, then they tend to grow up emotionally healthy. If they don't feel
Mm-hmm.
love, they grow up with a lot of internal emotional struggles. In the teenage years, they will go looking for love, often in the wrong places.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, learning the child's love language and giving heavy doses of their primary love language and speaking the other four. because we'd like for that child to learn how to receive love and give love in all five languages. That's the healthiest adult. Most of us didn't receive all five. So some of them we have to learn when we become adults. But yeah, I think if parents will meet the need for love, the children are far more open to instruction and to following the guidelines that we lay down for them.
Dr. Chapman, this may be a tough question, but as you're speaking, we're talking and we have younger children. But if I'm an older man and I have grandchildren and I missed the boat on my kids because my generation was supposed to be strict and tough and I didn't show love, is it too late for me? Or can I go back to my kids and say, hey, I really messed things up all those years. I didn't know how to show my love. I truly loved you, but I didn't know how to show the love. How do you reconcile that with your children? And you want to make amends and you really want to show that you actually did love them, but you just didn't know how to.
Yeah. I think there are many families where parents have a fractured relationship with adult children because of the kind of things you're talking about. And yes, I think it's always healthy, whether you read something in a book that causes you to realize that, or you hear a lecture and you realize, boy, I messed up on that. It's always healthy to go back to an adult child if they will allow you to speak to them and say, I've been thinking about my life and looking back over my life, and just realize that exactly what you said earlier. I messed up on some stuff. I loved you. Looking back on it, in my mind, I loved you. But I know I didn't express it in a very good way, and I know you've told me that you feel like I didn't love you. So I'm just telling you now, as an adult, I'm still trying to learn, and I don't know. I hope you can forgive me for that, because I do genuinely love you. I loved you then. I just didn't know how to express it in a way that was meaningful to you. And whether they'll just immediately forgive you or not, I don't know. But they're going to walk away and be thinking, wow, I never thought I'd hear that. And chances are it's the first step in reestablishing a relationship with that adult child.
It's accepting the responsibility that as an adult, you made a mistake with your children, and taking full responsibility and ownership of that and saying, yeah, I did some great things. I may have done it my way, but my way may have been the wrong way. And I know my child, ultimately, all children, like Julia said, I think, is to crave their parents' love and want to be noticed and just want to be felt special. They want to have their self-esteem, and that's through the love of a parent. And as we get older, we all make mistakes with our children. If we love them too much, it's a mistake. If we don't love them enough, it's a mistake. So just being there and saying, I'm really sorry. I know it's going to take time to heal this relationship, but if you're the adult, the child is looking up to you for guidance. And if you're, what is the word, man enough for me to say, I've made a mistake, I really want to continue to grow this relationship.
I think too, though, sometimes people are like, oh no, it's too late. My child, my adult child will be like, no, it's, I don't want to hear about it. Whether they say that or not, there's everything in me tells me that person will feel loved at that moment, of course. And, we all give we give an excuse, like it's not going to be worth it. Yes, I promise you it will be, and I know that someone out there is like, this podcast would help somebody. Please send it to them, because, Dr. Chapman has written some amazing books to help the family. I mean, I'm so grateful for him. He's helped me out personally, and we've only met online. And so, the impact you have on people is incredible.
Well, the five love languages, when I read it the first time, I was asking people, and a lot of people knew about it. I feel like I'm an idiot.
Well, it's been out for a while.
I know that. I'm like,
I actually gave it to him. If you all go back to our first podcast with Dr. Chapman, he wouldn't read it for many, many years. We had to get you on our pod. We had to start a podcast. See, this is all part of my plan, right? Start a podcast at some point. Okay, Dr. Chapman would come on. Yeah, I had it all. I had it all there, Doctor. Okay, I want you to go to the next one, because the next love, the 5 traits of that healthy family, is about the children who obey and honor their parents. Talk about that for a second, because that kind of flips it a little bit, because now we're talking about the kids.
Yeah. And I think we as parents have to recognize, first of all, that we have the responsibility to be the authority in the home. We're the one to make rules, and we want to make rules for a purpose. We want to make rules that are good for the child, and we should always talk about that together. Is this a good rule for the child? What will this rule teach the child? That's what it's all about. It's not about bringing, well, my mama said do this. No, no, no. It's not about doing what your mama said do. It's what you believe now is the best thing. Like, when my wife and I first got married and we had our first child and so forth, we had a rule that you don't sing at the table when we're eating. And I said to her one day, honey, why do we have that rule? And she said, well, my mother always had that rule. I said, well, mine did too. But I mean, why? What's wrong with singing? I mean, as long as you don't have food in your mouth, it's okay to sing at the table. So we just got rid of that rule, So we ought to think in terms of the rules. What are they teaching the child? And every time we have a rule, we should also have in mind the consequences if they break the rule. And we should tell the child what the consequences are. For example, let's say you have a rule, we don't throw the ball inside the house. We throw the ball in the backyard, but not in the house. And if you throw the ball in the house, the ball goes in the trunk of the car for 2 days and you lose the privilege to play with it. And if you break something, we have to pay for it out of your allowance. Got it? The kids got it. They understand. That makes sense, So when they do throw the ball in the house, you don't have to go ballistic. I told you not to throw the ball. You know better than that. Look what you've done. No. They know the consequences than you do. So you lovingly administer the consequences. You say, Johnny or Mary, you remember the rule? We don't throw the ball in the house. And they're nodding their head. And the vase is broken. And you know what has to happen with the ball, right? And they start crying and nodding their heads. Yeah, they know what has to happen. Well, let's go out to the car and put it in the trunk. And I don't know what the vase will cost, but we'll have to find out, and we'll have to start taking it out of your allowance. But listen, I love you so much. You normally keep the rules, and I love you so much. You kind of wrap it in love. And when you do, they understand because they already knew what the consequences are going to be. And we don't back off. We don't say, well, I'm gonna let it go this time. No. I remember my son, we had a rule that you had to put the bicycle in the shed every night, and if you don't put it in there one night and leave it out, you lose the privilege the next day to ride the bike. So he left it out one night. And so I said, oh, Derek, you remember what happened, son? He left it out. And I said, you remember what the consequences are, right? You don't get to ride the bicycle today. Oh, Dad, all the guys are going to be riding this afternoon. Hey, Dad, how about letting me ride today and not tomorrow? I said, no, son. Remember the consequences. You lose the privilege the next day. And I said, I know that's hard, and if I were in your shoes, I'd know it was hard too. But we have to learn to keep the rules or we have to suffer the consequences. He never left it out. Never left it out again.
Yeah.
See, if we kind of back off and are soft, and we feel, well, maybe I'm being too hard. No, if you've already stated it and they know it and you know it, you're just simply doing what life is, the way life is. You break the rules, you suffer the consequences. And it's unfortunate in our country that we have thousands of people who never learned that. And so now they do whatever they want to do. And many times there's no consequences. And so that whole segment of society is just, in an uproar, and everybody's concerned about it. So this is huge in terms of impacting the culture and their lives in the future.
Yeah.
You're setting expectations for the child and the relationship, and it's so hard as a parent to have that part of the bargain, because sometimes this is I'm punishing myself. Like I take the privilege away. No Barbies tonight, Laura. I really wanted to play Barbies with her tonight, but I'm punishing her because I can't play with her. So that's
I'm curious. We actually, again, the same conversation as mentioned before. A lot of people I knew growing up, I mean, the consequences were just way too big for the crime. Do you know what I mean? And like, I know a lot of families that the kids like had to stop sports altogether for their whole life because I don't know, something dumb. Talk to those people out there. I'm very easygoing when it comes to consequences, but some parents out there, holy smokes! What do you say to them?
Well, I think the consequences should fit the crime, and that what I just described is a logical consequence of that.
Love it.
Yes. And so to go overboard and say, well, you can never do that again because you did this one time. I mean, you just chop whole segments of a child's life off, you know. And this
Yeah.
is why it's so important to think it through before it happens. So you're far more likely to have a logical consequence and a realistic consequence if you talk about it beforehand. So the two of you decide what the rule is and what the consequences, and then you explain it to the child. You know, this is what it's going to be, and and the child can understand that. I mean, you know, my son understood that concept, that it was important to put the bike in the shed, and he knew what I was doing was exactly what we had agreed to do, and so consequently, he put it in the shed. Yeah. I think we have
That's
to
great advice.
match it up. Yeah.
I like that advice because a lot of us just something happens and we react, and so you're you're being very proactive, and it's a huge help. Parents out there, there's also something, you know, we talk about kids obeying their parents or honoring their parents, as it says in the Bible, and I think sometimes we forget that us adult parents also have parents, and they're just older, and we forget to honor them sometimes.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes together, right?
You're right. Well, yeah. One of the points I make is that your children are watching how you treat your parents. You know, my mother lived to be 99, and in the last 10 years, she was, you know, she lived alone 9 of those years. Had to put her in a home the last year because she broke her back, but I would go down every week. It was an hour down there, an hour drive. I'd go down every week. And as long as she was able, I'd take her out to lunch. I'd spend time with her. I made sure that my 2 adult children knew what I was doing, because someday I might need them to come and help me. So, yeah, that's important. And I think children have to come to respect the authority of the parent. I mean, there were times that I said to my son 2 or 3 times through his growing up years, I said, Derek, let's remember this, son. I'm the father, and you're the son. And the father is responsible for making the rules, and the son's responsible for obeying them. I said, sometimes maybe the rule is not maybe the best rule, but it's what I believe is best for you. And so just remember, I'm the father and you're the son. I want to hear what you have to say, and I can understand your feelings. I can understand how it's hard and it doesn't feel good to have to do whatever it is, you know, but I'm the father. I have to do what I think is best for you. I remember one time he said, but Dad, everybody in my room has one. I said, everybody but you, son. Everybody but you. I said, I'm not the parent of all those other kids. I'm just the parent, your parent, you know, and I have to do what I believe is best for you. So, and I think the child understands that. I don't mean they like it. I don't mean they feel good at the moment, but they come to respect you. And you see, here's part of our problem. I have public school teachers who say to me, Gary, I spend half of my time just trying to get order in the classroom so I can teach, because they don't respect the authority of the teacher. You see, if they didn't learn to respect the authority of the parents, they won't respect the authority of teachers and other authorities in their lives.
Dr. Chapman, I have the title for your next book. It's going to be The 5 Traits of a Healthy Business. And as you're speaking throughout this entire podcast, it's like so resonating with me. You know, husbands and fathers, which are team members who love, support, and lead each other. You got team members who develop an attitude of service, right? I mean, you want your employees really to develop an intimate relationship, which to me is, okay, knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses, helping each other out, using the 5 love languages. So I think that's your next book, but that's just me speaking as your possible publisher. What's on the horizon for you? Because it doesn't seem like you're going to stop writing books. What's the next step for Dr. Gary Chapman? What do you want next?
Well, now let me say this. I did take the love languages to work. The book is entitled 5 Signs. The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace.
Yes,
I remember that.
Yes, I know.
And we have
appreciation.
By the way,
we call it appreciation rather than love language. And we've had great response to that.
Exactly.
Because what we found out was 70% of the people who have a job say they don't feel appreciated, and 64% of the people that leave a job and go to another job say they left because they didn't feel appreciated where they were. So we've had tremendous response to that. You know, if you feel appreciated in the workplace, man, you love going to work. If you have the kind of relationships you're talking about, it all begins with appreciation. And then, yes, you spend time together. If you know what makes them feel appreciated, you speak those language and they feel appreciated, and you teach them how to each other speak their appreciation language. We create a positive climate in the workplace. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the book that'll come out
Yeah.
next is going to be next year. I've already sent it in, but I don't know what the title will be, but it's how the love languages works in an adopted family when you have adopted
Ooh.
children.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
excellent.
awesome.
That
I
is
love
great.
that. So needed.
I wrote it with a lady
Absolutely.
that she and her husband have 2 adopted children, and she is a
Mm-hmm.
professor in psychology at Liberty University. So we think that book's going to help a lot
Nice.
of folks who are adopted children.
Oh,
have adopted
absolutely.
children.
Oh, that's amazing. Dr. Chapman, there's people listening right now that feel completely overwhelmed like I have in the past, and I didn't have the book at the time. And a lot of times you're in that moment, you're like, I can never get it together. It's too many steps for me. There's too much stuff. Can you give them just a little piece of encouragement from all the years that you've studied this, all the years that you have so much experience? What should they do? What's the first step?
Yeah.
What's one step?
Well, I like to remind people that growth is always incremental. It's one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You can't revolutionize everything all at once. And what I would
Mm-hmm.
suggest, a practical approach would be, if a husband and wife are in the family together, sit down
Mm-hmm.
and work through a book like this. And here's what I mean. Each of you reads the chapter, and then you say, what can we learn from this chapter? And we read the next chapter. And what can we learn from this chapter? It's just, taking one thing at a time and begin working on that, And I never talk about a perfect family or a perfect marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about a growing family and a growing marriage, because we're either growing or we're regressing. We're either getting better or we're getting worse. It doesn't stand still. And if we don't take some initiative to talk about, how might we make things differently, then we won't make them differently. It'll go downhill from wherever we are now. So I just encourage people to don't think in terms of you got to change everything immediately. Let's just work on one thing at a time, and we can build a healthy family.
I love that.
Where can the listeners get a copy of the book and even your website,
Mm-hmm.
all that information? Could you share that with us?
Yeah. Well, the website is 5lovelanguages.com. The number 5lovelanguages.com. All of my books are there, little blurbs on them. You can purchase them there, or you can go to Amazon. They're all on Amazon as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say your website is incredible. So whoever out there listening, please go to the website, buy the books, all of them, because they're all super helpful. They all say very different things in a very simple way. And like you said many times, they're practical steps to take.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's easy to understand, and you can apply them very easily. So.
I would give everyone a word of encouragement by just ending the podcast by saying awkwardness is an indication of learning.
Mm.
I mean, I'm still learning. And if you're not feeling awkward by reading all this stuff, the first time I read the 5 love languages, it was, I don't want to say it was earth shattering, but it was awkward trying to apply them and trying to take one step at a time. And if you're not doing that, you are regressing. So if you're feeling awkward and you're feeling overwhelmed, that's a normal state to be in, because you've never learned any of this stuff. No one's ever taught you any of this stuff. So don't feel as if you're behind or I wish I learned this sooner. You're in the right place right now to start feeling awkward, to learn about this, because the most important relationship you're going to have in your life, I think, is with your spouse and with your family, with your children. And if you can go out there and try to be a role model to others and try to teach others to try to mirror what a family and a really, really functioning family looks like, you can go out there and you can help other families and continue to spread that word. And that's what we really need in this, I think, in this world. And any final words before we sign off, Dr. Chapman?
No, I agree. I agree exactly with what you're saying. It will be awkward when you try to do something different that you haven't done before. And so you just say, this feels kind of awkward to me, but I really believe this could help. And so you do it, and you walk through the awkwardness, and eventually it becomes kind of natural for you.
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
If my husband can read it and get through it and apply it, then anyone can.
He's always making a dig at me. It's okay. She's right. I'm not going to disagree with that. Listen, it's really been an honor. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on. I've had such a good time. Every time we talk, I always take some wisdom away, and it's been a lot of fun. So for everybody out there, 5lovelanguages.com. buy the book, The 5 Traits of a Healthy Family, because you want to continue to grow with your family. You don't want your family to regress.
And pass it on.
Once again, thanks again, Dr. Chapman, for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed chatting with you.